Hi, I'm Maria from theteacherschool.com, and I wanted to talk to you today about questions I get the most at parent-teacher conferences. Now, I've been a teacher for, at least 14 years now, and have been asked all of the most difficult questions that are possible in a parent-teacher conference, mostly because these days I work with students who have learning challenges, and I'm also working as a math specialist, so I just get a lot of the math questions and the hard ones too. And I wanted today to give you some of the questions I hear and then also my responses, and maybe they will help you out in your own conferences. So the first question, and you will probably be getting this for the rest of your teaching career, is that question of why we teach math differently than maybe our students' parents learned it, or likely the way our students' parents learned it. Sometimes this comment is couched in a offhand comment like, why is Common Core so confusing or stupid or complicated, right? Sometimes that is the fault of the curriculum. Sometimes the curriculum we have can be a little confusing, right? Sometimes it's not always executed as well as we'd want it to be. But the reason behind this switch to Common Core, and the reason behind why we teach math differently than most of us actually learned it, is because we want students to have a different relationship with math. We don't want them to be just focused on getting the right answer. We want them to understand what they're doing when they subtract, when they multiply fractions. We want them to understand the math underneath the steps they're doing, and that will also translate to increased number sense, which students will carry with them for the rest of their lives. So after all of the formulas and algorithms are done, we really want to make sure that they have that way of thinking that math builds. And the best way to do that is to change the way we teach math. So we're not just so focused on the long division steps, but the meaning of long division. That's my diplomatic answer. And I often say it with like a very authoritative teacher voice. No question marks, no going up at the end. You are an expert, and this is the way you teach it because you know it's the best way to teach it. There you go. What about using your fingers? A lot of parents will say, very sadly, she still uses her fingers. And my answer is use fingers. Fingers, all the research says fingers are an important developmental part of students learning numbers, understanding numbers, and in fact, a part of our brain lights up when we use our fingers, even when we stop using our fingers. It is a brain-body connection that has existed far longer than even you or I can imagine. They are an important tool, and students should be encouraged and not discouraged to use their fingers. There's a lot of research on this, and I will link to it if a parent disagrees. Okay, the next thing is the question about how can I best support my child at home. Usually it is around facts, addition facts, subtraction facts, multiplication facts, but just in general, parents want to know how can they support their kid at home. And I would say the best way a student can be supported at home by a parent is for the parent and the child to play math games together. Not necessarily on the computer. I think there's actually a lot to be said for just sitting down at the table with a parent and them taking the time for you to play math games with them. And the key to this really is that when you play math games with someone who's younger than you, you share a bit of your number sense. So if you're playing a game like War and you're talking through who wins the stack of cards, you're talking about numbers. You're comparing numbers. You're saying, oh, I have 10 and that's bigger than 8, so I get the pile. And you're sharing some of your number sense with your student. That's how number sense is built, through those conversations and the back and forth. So the best thing they can do is play games. One of my favorite games that can be used across a bunch of grades is War. You can play War, Addition War, you can play Multiplication War, you can play Fraction War. War is a great game that you can use and play throughout a child's life up until maybe fourth, fifth grade, and you can get so much from it. In fact, you can also even use it to practice integers, positive, negative numbers. I will link to that video that explains all the ways to play war, and you are welcome to share it with your students' parents. Now, the final question I get, and this is the question I get less often, but I do get it, is a question about challenging students in math. Often parents want workbooks and games on the iPad, and they want to find ways to challenge their students more in math. And that's admirable. Like, I think that if a student is doing well in math, they should feel like they have a place to go with their math understanding. But what I often caution against is trying to go to that next grade level or even the grade level beyond that, because a lot of times math is developmental. Students aren't ready to learn the thing that's 2 years ahead because they're 8 and not 10, and there's a difference there. For example, first graders, they could memorize multiplication facts, but they're not going to know what they're memorizing. And we want them to have an understanding of what they're memorizing, and not just do it blindly. Instead of encouraging students to go to a higher level, I like to encourage students to go deeper with their understanding. And sometimes that means more analysis. Sometimes that means projects. So creating a math game for themselves, creating a sheet of problems for a younger sibling, or even, and I like this a lot, is thinking about the things that students who tend to be really strong at math do struggle with. Students who do well in math class can struggle with articulating their thinking, modeling their thinking. So if they do 42 minus 21, explaining how they do it using a model, coming up with an alternative way to solve problems than the one that they usually use. And then the last one is often problem solving. So giving students those kinds of opportunities within kind of a couple grade levels of what you're doing, that's going to be an opportunity for them to grow more deeply as mathematicians rather than just moving to harder and start harder stuff. Okay, I hope that's helpful, and let me know in the comments if there's any questions I missed. Check out the other videos I mentioned for more ideas.